Got to get myself set up because I haven't run a stream in almost a month. So I'm a little rusty. Bear with me. And if people join the show, then we will talk about the Philippines. But while we wait, let's get the theme music on. All right, let's get that moving. There we are. Welcome to the show. We'll get started in just a minute. Today we're talking about the Philippines. Welcome to the show. We're going to get started in just a minute. Welcome to the show. We're going to get started in just a minute. Tonight we're talking about the Philippines, specifically Cebu. Welcome to the show. We're going to get started in just a minute. Tonight we're talking about the Philippines, specifically Cebu. Excellent. I think we can get going. Okay. So, welcome to the live stream. My name is Gene. I go by the Last Good Man in Jersey on YouTube. Run a channel. Talk about two things, travel and politics. I've been spending a lot of time talking about politics of late, but tonight we're going back to kind of the origins and talking about travel. Specifically travel to the Philippines. So if you've ever considered a trip to the Philippines, this is the right show. But I see we lost our audience, and I'm not going to just talk in space. Welcome to the show. We'll get started in just a minute. Tonight we're talking about the Philippines. Welcome to the show. We're going to get started in just a minute. Tonight we're talking about the Philippines. Shigla Cesar, hey, how you doing? Haven't seen you in a while. Welcome back. Getting back to the origins, talking about travel to the Philippines. Because I will be traveling to the Philippines, flying out on Saturday. Going to be there for 2 weeks. Looking forward to it. Actually, since we got you on, we can make it more of a one-on-one. If other people join, they can just join. But yeah, I know that we haven't chatted in a while, and I remember that when you first um, set up when we first had our live conversation, you mentioned that a lot of what you really gravitated towards on my channel was the conversation I had about the Philippines, which I always appreciated because that's what I started with. Made a little pivot just because of all the election news, but the Philippines is one of my passions, and I will definitely continue making content about it. Specifically, I'm going to be flying to the Philippines on Saturday. So I'm geared all up. It's going to be about a 28-hour flight all in, which is actually not bad because as far as I've seen with all of the things that I've booked, I can't get from New Jersey to the Philippines to Cebu without making 2 stops. I have yet to find a way to get there without making 2 stops. And this one's no different. I've got stop in LAX, and then I've got a stop in Taipei, and I do get direct from Taipei to the Philippines. So one thing I will say, if you ever consider a trip to the Philippines, really think about how you're planning to get there. I would not recommend flying through Manila to Cebu if you don't have to, and I definitely would not recommend if you do have to fly Manila to Cebu, I definitely would not recommend landing in Manila anytime after about 5 p.m. because the Philippines is not like America. In America, things run like clockwork. You land in your airport whenever you land. It doesn't matter what delays you've experienced. People can figure out how to get you where you're going. They can give you directions and you're good. That's not the Philippines at all. I was in the Philippines last year and I landed in Manila probably about 2 a.m. Now that wasn't the plan. I got delayed in Japan, Hong Kong, I got delayed in Hong Kong, excuse me, not Japan. I was delayed in Hong Kong, and by the time I actually got into Manila, it was like 2 in the morning. Problem is, the Manila airport basically shuts down, so nobody's working. Planes are landing, passengers are getting off, but they're kind of trying to hustle you out of the airport. They're like, you know what, you got to go someplace else, come back in the morning and we'll figure it out. So I spent my first few hours in the Philippines stuck in a Manila airport because I was trying to figure it out. I know better this time. So I'm going to land at about 10 o'clock in the morning if all goes well, which is unlikely. But assuming delays, no, the delays, sure, they'll push me out till later in the day. But, if I'm delayed 6 hours, well, guess what? I'm still flying out at like 2 o'clock. So really pay attention to your flights. 28 hours is what I've got. That's pretty good. You might get down to 24-ish, but that's tough. If you're really a bargain shopper and you're willing to spend 48 hours in transit, which I'm not willing to do, you can book flights that are probably half as expensive as what I did. You just have to decide how much of your vacation time you want to spend in the airport versus actually in country. Since I'm only traveling for 2 weeks, that matters to me. Now, for people who've never been to the Philippines, what I'll say is, I'm a huge advocate. I've gone over there and I love it over there. Can't get enough of it. If I didn't have commitments in the States, I would probably relocate there because of how much I love it there. And it's really simple. When I'm in the Philippines, I get to feel like a celebrity. That's something I don't really experience in America because I'm not a celebrity. Literally, when I'm in the Philippines, I'm taller than average, I'm richer than average, I'm kind of rare. Now, sure, I'm a black guy. Not a lot of black guys walking around the Philippines, but you don't have to be a black guy. If you're a Westerner, there are not a lot of Westerners walking around in the Philippines. You'll see some, I know the bars to go to. You know, if I'm in a tourist location, sure, I'll see a few Westerners walking around. But 99% of the people you're going to see every day are going to be Filipinos. So the Westerners are rare and they stand out. And I like that. I I really like the feeling of being kind of the celebrity, of wherever I go, getting noticed, and people being curious about me. That's an experience that some guys may never get unless they actually decide to bite the bullet and pay for the ticket. In which case, I think you will be um, blown away. Yeah, literally blown away by what you experience there. The cost of living is cheap, the pace of life is slow, the people are friendly, the women will find you interesting. And that's another big part of it that we will stop on. I can say now that in the last 12 months, I know two guys who were looking for wives and found wives in the Philippines. There's a guy who's on my political channel named Steve. Some people, if they listen to the show, will know him because Steve is very vocal with his opinions, and Steve is a Republican who has said that he is not voting for Trump because he's got a lot of problems with Trump and things that Trump has done. Not to go down the political path, but just to paint a picture for who Steve is. Steve recently got married to a woman from the Philippines who he met online. And there's another guy named David who I believe is married by now. David spent a little bit over a year on all of the paperwork to bring his fiancee back to the States because he wanted to get married. Now, why are these guys going to the Philippines, or they're exploring the Philippines and they're finding wives? And that's one of the reasons to go. It's not the only reason to go. It's definitely not the reason why I'm going, but it definitely is a reason. And if you're a guy who wants to start a family and you got the means to get over to the Philippines and to explore it, yeah, you can basically find a wife in no time. She'll be young. You can find one with no kids who's not overweight. You can start your life. If that's what you're looking for, hey, ask me whatever it is that's holding you up, because let me tell you, the life you want is over there, and it's not that hard to bring it back. And also, contrary to popular belief, when you bring a woman back to the Philippines, it's not about a green card. Filipinas don't really divorce their men. They don't divorce them at all in the Philippines. They don't divorce them very much in the States. That's just not the culture. So there is a lot of benefit associated with finding a Filipina, bringing her back to the States, building life. It's not to say you can't do that in the States, but just from an option standpoint. I mean, I've been to the Philippines. I live in the States. In terms of the options, yeah, the Philippines has more options, more of what you are looking for. And I just remembered I left something on the stove, so bear with me 1 second while I turn off the stove before I burn it up. All right. Dinner tonight is veggie pasta. I was not a big fan of veggie pasta. I was a meat and potatoes, hamburgers, pizza kind of guy. pretty much all my life. It's actually a good transition for a point in the story. I went and got a checkup. The doc said, your cholesterol is too high. You eat too much greasy food. I normally don't listen, but the doctor normally doesn't stress it. So I was like, okay, I guess he's stressing it. Maybe I should cut back. He did another assessment, and after I started eating a little bit more fruits and vegetables, like he said, my numbers came way down. He's like, oh, your numbers are great now. So it's one of those things where until I actually tried it, I didn't know what the benefit would be. Now that I've seen the numbers, it's like, oh, wow. I know how dramatic a change there is because I just added some vegetables. Making that transition, that's kind of a transition into the Philippines. Some guys will not understand the benefit of the Philippines until they go there for themselves. You have to see it with your own two eyes to understand it. But once you are there, once you see it, it's something that you can't unsee. And let me tell you, the Philippines is a sight. You have to put into perspective the strength of the American dollar over there. Right. In the Philippines, I can get a hotel. Let's just say hypothetically, you wanted to look at living in the Philippines for the summer. You can get a hotel that's pretty reasonable, $20 a night. You can get things cheaper. I'm just saying, a hotel that is reasonable. It's got a pool, it's got high-speed internet. You're set up, and you don't have to worry about room service or any of that. It's got all the basics. $20 a night, so that's $600 a month. That's lodging, and that's high-speed internet. It's even your water. And Sheila says, so if your cholesterol is too high, are you not worried about the Philippines diet? I heard they had so much MSG, interest, basically high cholesterol food. So it depends on what you eat. You can go, I'm not going to eat the street food when I'm in the Philippines. Yeah, if I went out and I ate a bunch of street food all the time, ate at Jollibee's all the time, sure, that would not be that wouldn't align well with the way I need to eat. Now, number one, though, I'm only going to be there for 2 weeks, so I could eat trash the whole time and I'd be fine. But a big part of the Philippines diet is rice, maybe garlic rice. Rice, simple. Sometimes they'll do meat, sometimes they'll do fish, they'll do some kind of a side. But no, you can enjoy a lot of things in the Philippines without worrying about your cholesterol at all. You do just have to be a little bit smarter. Typically, last time I was there, I ate a whole bunch of fast food. I could still eat fast food. I would just be a little bit more choiceful about what I go out and eat. There are lots and lots of rice dishes in the Philippines, let me tell you. You can get rice with, garlic rice with some kind of veggie, garlic rice with chicken, something like that. There are lots of things that you can do that are just fine. Now, I'm not going to pretend like I'm going to, eat healthy the whole time I'm there, because I'm not. I'm going to go to Sugbo Mercado. I'm going to go to Jollibee's. I'm going to go hit up all the spots. But I'm not going to go crazy on my, I'm not going to just totally break my diet when I'm there. Because I just, now that I've seen the numbers, it's like, oh, I kind of like where things are going. So yeah, I would, that's a great question. You do have to decide how hard of a vacation mode are you going to be in when you go to the Philippines. Because maybe you go hardcore vacation mode and you just let yourself go for 2 weeks. Or maybe, you kind of adjust and do that sort of a thing. And then she was saying, are you going there for vacation, swimming with the dolphins, or to find a wife? So I'm mainly going to the Philippines for vacation. I don't think I'm shopping for a wife anymore. I'll tell you, number one, and this is one of the things, we've talked. in America, there's no way I'm looking for a wife because the divorce rate's too high. And we mentioned, divorces are overwhelmingly filed by women. I, I absolutely will not get married in the West. I just don't see the point at this point in my life. It's all kinds of risks, not much benefit. Someone wants to date me, fine, but if they're saying they want, the ring, then they want security, and their security comes at the expense of my security. Just no, not doing that. Now, if I went to the Philippines, I would like to find someone, if I'm looking for, I'm single, I'm not in a serious relationship, so sure, I'd like to find someone, but that's not the end goal for me. If I go to the Philippines and I come back and I didn't meet a woman who I would want to start a long-term relationship with, no problem, don't care. I can, it's a vacation for me. So I'm going to swim with the whale sharks. I'm not going to spend as much time running around the kind of the outer islands as I did last time, because now that I've been once and I've seen it, I realize I don't want to spend as much of my time on buses. I did a lot of stuff last time where, I went out to the Chocolate Hills. That was a fun experience, but I got to be honest, I was at the Chocolate Hills for maybe an hour. And if I count the boat ride and the car ride and everything I did to get there, I probably spent 4 hours getting there for a 1 hour scenic adventure, and then it's another 4 hours back. So I'm not going to spend a day doing stuff like that again. I saw some waterfalls that were beautiful. Traveled out, spent a few hours traveling to a waterfall. Spent a couple of hours at the waterfall, traveled back. Great location, ton of fun, but there are waterfalls that are pretty close to Cebu City. I could probably visit waterfalls without traveling more than about 45 minutes. And as far as I've seen, one waterfall is pretty much as fun as the rest, assuming that I can swim around as much as I want. So, yeah, I will spend more time in Cebu City, but yeah, it's not a trip where I'm specifically looking for a wife. I do want to meet, a nice woman when I'm there, but that's not the only thing I'm there for. Last time I went, I was going to meet a woman who I already knew. I don't have any women waiting for me when I get to the Philippines. Now I know if I go walking around in the mall, women are going to flirt with me. If I go to IT Park, Sugbo Mercado, women are going to flirt with me. I don't expect that to not happen. It's really just a matter of whether that's the end goal or not. I kind of want to explore it. I want to enjoy it. I want to kind of start to look at the idea of, hey, what if I lived in the Philippines? It's nothing that's going to happen anytime soon, but just from a lifestyle standpoint, it's like, what if I looked at this as some place to retire to? Does it make sense? I'm going to take a quick bite of my food. Okay. Not bad, not bad. Once upon a time, I wouldn't have eaten veggie pasta. I was opposed to eating anything that didn't have meat in it. Pretty much meat, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Excuse me. I was going to have my bacon or sausage for breakfast. I was going to have my Chipotle for lunch. And I was going to have a cheeseburger or something like that for dinner. But I adjusted. I realized, you know what? This ain't so bad. That's part of the thing about the Philippines is I need to see what the adjustment is like. The pace in the Philippines would be different than the pace of life in the States. But not by much. I mean, let's face it, if you spend most of your time at work and then watching Netflix and going to the grocery store, okay, Whether you're in America or the Philippines or Alaska, if you're not really going outside that much, who cares? Your life isn't really going to change. And you do have, kind of weather and light and things like that to consider, but Philippines is a warmer climate than New Jersey for sure. A lot of Filipinos have never seen snow because it doesn't snow there. So we go from kind of warm and humid to hot and humid, and I would not have a problem with the weather. I've seen guys talk about retiring into Cebu and kind of living in Cebu City because they basically say that everything they need is in Ayala Mall. So just kind of from a healthcare and conveniences standpoint, they're saying if you live kind of close to Ayala Mall, you can build out a life that's not that different than your life in the West. I don't know. I've never looked at it, but when I'm there, I'll get to check it out. I am curious. I haven't even walked through all of Ayala Mall. I've taken a trip and it's nice, but if I said, is this the place where I could go to kind of take care of all of my basic needs? Well, I'll get to see what that's like. And Sheila's saying, I saw your interview with Steve. He shared his videos and pictures on your interview. I noticed she was not into him like he was, especially when he kissed her. She also looked young. Yeah, so, well, as far as how into him or not into him she is, that part's tricky. Steve's wife's name is Jelani, and he kind of rushed into the marriage because of his situation. But I think it's important to understand, let's frame Steve up for a second, because that's very astute. Steve's a guy who lived in the States. Steve is a semi-retired guy. He's in his mid-60s, and basically Steve had some work. He's got his kids. His daughter lives with him. His son doesn't. Steve didn't have a lot that was really motivating him to get up and going every day because he's kind of semi-retired and he doesn't have anyone. He tried dating women in the States and he didn't have much success. Now COVID had a little bit to do with that, but basically Steve was a guy who just wanted someone to grow old with, and him trying to find that in the States didn't yield much of a result. And he just kind of got tired of banging his head against the wall, so he started looking at the Philippines. Now he looked at another woman in the Philippines through a dating service. Personally, I think the dating service he went to the first time was sort of a scam, but then he went to another website where he found women who were legit. They wanted relationships, they were real. No scams associated with it. And he met a woman named Jelani. And she's working overseas. A lot of women in the Philippines will do offshore work, which means that while they are from the Philippines, they'll go to Japan or China and do like a 2 or 3 year work contract because they make enough money to be able to send stuff home and set the family up. So Jelani was doing one of those. Steve was starstruck by her. And let's face it, let's say Steve is 63, somewhere around there. Jelani's like early 30s. And she's got, a kid. To Jelani, she's young. She's having to do offshore work because she's got her kid to take care of. She's got her family to take care of. She's got a lot of responsibilities. Steve, to her, is, he's a godsend. He's a guy who owns a house in America, who's got room. She could basically move in, be a wife, and Steve would be happy because he's got someone to build a life with. She's happy because she's got someone to take care of her. Steve proposed to her kind of all of a sudden. They had not met in person when Steve proposed. So that was Steve making a move. Basically, he was talking to the U.S. Embassy, U.S. and the Philippines embassies, about what it would take for him to be able to bring Jelani to the United States. And they were exploring all of the options. Part of what they realized was the fastest way for Steve to bring Jelani back to the States would be if they were married. If they're just dating, it's a lot longer time frame than if they're married. And once they realized that, Steve just up and proposed right there on the spot, and Jelani accepted. She was willing to go all in if he was. Um, so they met for the first time in person when Steve went to Hong Kong, which is where she's working. I think he flew there to get married. So they had proposed. He had the ring. She was basically meeting her fiance. It's almost like an arranged marriage. She's meeting her fiance like a week before they're getting married. So he told me that she was definitely nervous about the experience. But the funny thing is, she was nervous because she wasn't sure whether or not she was going to live up to Steve's expectations. She's got a young child who's back in the Philippines, and she's got to figure out, how to manage the young child. She can't move to the States immediately. She's on a work contract, and she has to finish her contract before she can actually come to America. So she had a lot of things that were concerns to her, but to Steve, he described it as purpose. He has a reason to get up and get going today. He's not just, kind of semi-retired, waking up, figuring out what he's going to do with his day. No, now he's trying to figure out how he can bring his wife and her child to America, and he's got to negotiate all of the issues around her potentially wanting a kid with him, because that's, their culture. If they're getting married, they want a kid with the man who they're marrying. So he's got a lot to think about. But the thing I would say that Steve most has now is he's got that vigor, that he's got a North Star again. He knows what he's doing every day. He's working on bringing his wife to the States so they can really start their life. And when you see the way a guy lights up, seeing how Steve lit up when he knew that she had accepted his proposal and everything that happened after that, I look and I think Steve's a guy who's happy now. He wasn't happy. He didn't feel like he was happy before. He's definitely happy now. He's got the life that, he's been looking for. And I say, God bless him. Guy's been spending, years trying to find a relationship in the States, and he couldn't. And he goes to the Philippines, or he explores the Philippines and he finds it. Hey, kudos to him. I tell him, don't look back. Don't listen to anybody telling you, that you're making a mistake. You've got the life you want to live, so enjoy it. We're gonna take another bite. Olives and sun-dried tomatoes. Those are the keys to my pasta dishes. If I got those, it's hard for it to not come out tasting great. Without those, not as easy. And Sheila says, you're absolutely right. It's his life and he's loving it. So I'll frame something up because it's funny. So there's another podcast called Security Boss. And it's a woman who, she advocates for relationships. But she was really focused on adults, 40 plus, being able to get into relationships with each other. She was trying to convince 40-year-old men to date 40-year-old women. I don't think that that's going to go very far. 50-year-old men, 40-year-old women, yeah, sure. 40-year-old men, 40-year-old women, no, not, I just don't see that happening as much. But that was her idea. Now, here was the funny thing about her show. There are guys on her show who are late 40s, don't have kids, want kids. And they deal with a lot of rejection in the West. There's this guy, his name's Dr. Eugene Steele. I was trying to have a serious conversation with him about considering the Philippines. And I will never forget this conversation because I'm talking to this guy who clearly wants kids, doesn't have them, wants them, hasn't figured out how to make it work. And he's fighting to figure out how to get women in the West to like him. Now, he's a smart guy. I'm assuming he's successful. He's got the dad bod, a little nerdy, a little reserved, but, he's not a problematic guy. He's just not like the big, strong alpha guy that some women might like. And I said to him, as he kept arguing about not going to the Philippines, I'm like, look, dude, you don't have kids. You could fly there, you could find a wife, and you could start your family. 12 months from now, you could have your first kid. So why aren't you doing it? Why are you sitting here whining about what's going on in the West when you could hop on a plane and solve all your problems? And I will never forget his response because he said, I don't want to seem like a predator. Basically, he's, late 40s. He's more worried about the image he projects if he's married to a 22-year-old than with his own happiness. And I just thought, dude, there's no hope for you. You could be married to a young, beautiful woman who's loyal and will start your family, but you're more worried about what other people think than you are with your own happiness. That makes no sense to me. None. In the Philippines, there's a lot of good options out there, and I don't see why guys, if guys have the money, if they're doing well, I don't see why they don't take up the mantle, go to the Philippines, and find the wife they're looking for. You see, Sheila says, what's your take on prenups? Why bother? Here's the thing in the West. I know people who gotten married, had prenups, and then when the wife divorces the husband, she attacks the prenup. Now let's face it, there are some excellent lawyers out there. And you got lawyers who, heck, they're getting paid to do this. They will twist that prenup around looking for any angle, any argument they can for why it needs to be tossed out or why it not needs to be taken, at face value. I think prenups can work if people approach the issue with good faith, but you can't guarantee that. Let's face it, there is no guarantee whatsoever that a woman you marry in the West would honor a prenup if you had one. Just like that the divorce rate's like 50%, and just like that if the woman's been married once before, then the likelihood that she has a divorce is even higher. It's like it goes from 50 to 60, and then 60 to 70 if it's the second or the third marriage. It just keeps climbing. If you couldn't trust her to stay married to you, how can you trust her to honor a prenup? One of the things I like about the Philippines, and I'm not saying that I'm going over there that I would get married again. I probably wouldn't because they're bringing divorce to the Philippines. But one of the things I like about the Philippines is that divorce doesn't really exist in their culture. I got a message I got to swipe away. So you're getting involved with a woman who doesn't think about divorce because it's not part of her culture. And that's a real big thing. See, divorce is not the habit. In America, woman doesn't like what's going on with her husband. He's not trying hard enough. He's not making enough money, whatever it is. There's a habit, which is divorce. In the Philippines, the habit is to stay together. Now, sure, you can have some dysfunctional marriages because two people stay together when they don't really love each other, when they're not really committed. But if I'm looking at this and I'm saying what's more compelling to me, potentially being in a relationship with someone who could divorce me because she's not feeling it one day, or potentially being in a relationship with someone who might have to stick it out through a rough patch. Give me the person who might have to stick it out through a rough patch. I would much rather have someone who hits the rough patch and whose first instinct is to tough it out than someone who hits the rough patch and whose first instinct is to bounce. So yeah, I'm not a fan, and I don't tell other people what to do. I just talk about me. I'm not a fan of getting married in the West because of the divorce rate. I'm not a fan of prenups because I see women fight them too much. Feels like it's too easy to get out of the prenups conditions if you're really motivated. And let's face it, I've gone through a divorce, so I saw someone who I trusted go through a divorce, have a lawyer whispering in her ear, and start thinking about the potential financial benefit. And when you see that, you realize, okay, maybe you go into it with, good intentions, but once that lawyer gets in your ear, starts talking to you about what you can have and what you deserve for all your pain and suffering and on and on and on, well, you change. So, yeah, I say, best way to avoid issues with a prenup is to just not get married in the first place. I also have seen, there are podcasters who stream about their lives in Southeast Asia. And these are men who, they have women who they are committed to, but they're not married. Now, if you look at the life the woman has, she lives with her man. He takes care of all the expenses. She handles the domestic aspects of their life. She cleans up, she cooks. If the one guy is named Sunshine's Shoulders, they have a kid. She takes care of the kid. He makes the money, and they're happy with that. Culturally, that's what she's used to. Culturally, that's what he's been looking for, and that works. And they're not married, so there's no prenup to worry about. I like that arrangement a lot. I want an arrangement where I'm not assuming a lot of risk, because I believe that I can do a relationship until the end, until we're dead. I believe I can do that. I don't know if the woman I'm with can do that. So I want to minimize the chances that she's going to up and leave and not getting married in the first place, or being in a culture where they just don't understand divorce. Those seem like the best options for me. Somebody would really have to explain to me why I should get married and sign a prenup, because my question to them would be, why get married in the first place? Don't need the prenup if I don't get married. With that, I'm going to take another bite. I'm very happy with this pasta. And Sheila says I'm okay with it. I would sign it without a doubt. Some people do. But the fact remains. The only people who are trying to overturn prenups are people who signed prenups to begin with. And there seems to be enough of that happening that it's just not worth it. Here's a good question for women who are, let's say, late 30s plus. If they're looking to get married, then the question they have to ask is, like, why? You get women who, they've had all the kids they're going to have. Don't fault them for that. Financially, they've done well, they're successful, okay? Or maybe never had kids and they want them. Okay. Why the need to get married? I mean, honestly, if I look at, and I'm a guy, so clearly I don't see this from the women's side, but as a guy looking at this and thinking about it, for from the women's standpoint, if a woman doesn't get married, it seems like she has more options. I mean, the guys that a woman can sleep with are a different caliber than the guys that a woman can marry. Women can sleep with NBA players. Women can sleep with entertainers. Women can sleep with pretty top tier guys if they're just going into it to have some fun. Those guys will sleep with them. Those guys aren't going to marry them. So if a woman just wants intimacy, okay, getting married actually feels like it's counterproductive, because now she's got to take a step down. She's got to marry a regular guy, because the guys who might sleep with her just aren't going to be proposing. And Sheila says it's kind of like insurance. Besides, your investments truly belong to your daughter. So I think that the marriage can feel like insurance to a woman in those situations. I don't know. Well, let's put it like this: if I was with a woman who makes a whole lot less than me, which more than likely would be the case because I do reasonably well, getting married is not that's not insurance to me. Maybe it's insurance to her because now she's got a legal angle to use to go after some of my assets. But to me, no, that's just risk. And kind of to your point, I have a kid. I have a daughter. When I'm dead and gone, I'm leaving everything I've got to my kid. Hopefully she doesn't screw it up. But you know what? I'm dead and gone. I don't care. It belongs to her. What I absolutely don't want is some woman who I meet and know for 2 years to be able to take half of what I've built away from my kid. I do want my kid to be able to enjoy it. I don't want some woman who I've just known for a couple of years to be able to take any of it. Now, do women want financial security? Sure. Now that's where I say, you know what? If you get married young, okay, you're building with a guy. You want to get married later to a guy who's already built it up? Well, what are you adding to it? I know women who, it's kind of funny, real story. I know women who are late 20s and they work as like coffee shop baristas. And in their mind, guys who make a lot of money need to jump through hoops to prove themselves to these women. Now you look at them and you think there's a reason why you're in your late 20s and you're single and you're a barista at a coffee shop, because you haven't grown up and started to just pressure test whether what you're trying to do is actually going to work. I mean, the notion that a guy who's making big bucks is going to beg you to go out on a date with him because you got a nice smile, that's not how life works. But to them, they feel owed. And that's fine, Go after what you can go after. Shoot your shot at whoever you can. But I look at that mindset and I just think, nah, I'm not going to bother with that. That's risk. I'm very comfortable having a woman, giving her a comfortable lifestyle, basically putting her in a situation where she doesn't really have to worry about working, but I want something in return for that. And part of what I want in return for that is reassurance that I don't have to worry about her coming after my money. So, you want the lifestyle, that's great. But if you want the ring too, that's a non-starter. Not putting the ring on your finger, not assuming the financial risk. I need to know that I'm protected. And let's face it, as long as you're with me, you got no problems. You won't have to worry about the bills being paid, about life plans. You won't have to worry about any of that. But if you decide to up and leave, you got nothing. Now, to women who think that's a bad deal, I say, you know what? You sound like a woman who's not that loyal to begin with. If you're going into the relationship thinking about what you will get when the relationship ends, you're not the kind of ride or die all-in person I'm looking for. And if you are that kind of person, well, you'll get everything but the ring and the wedding, because I need an insurance policy too. Some women can work with that. A lot of women can't. I get it. But it goes back to that question. Why get married? You're 38, you're making a lot of money, and you want a guy to sign up to marry you. And that guy might say, why should I? Because it's risk. I don't see a lot of women who have an answer to that question. Not an answer that makes sense to men. Sure, they'll say, the marriage benefits the woman, but in terms of why should the guy want to do it, they never have a good answer to that. Now I'm going to take another bite. I do like veggie pasta. This is going from being something I would never really dream of to something that once or twice a week I actually crave. Now, kind of to the point we're getting at, which is marriage and expectations. Part of the reason why I'm going to Cebu in the Philippines is because Cebu still has kind of a traditional feel. Basically, if you go to the Philippines, the big places to go are Manila or Cebu. Angeles is kind of a different animal. I would say Manila is the most advanced area. If you want to go to the Philippines, but you don't want it to feel too foreign, you still want all the creature comforts you're accustomed to from the West, go to Manila. You'll feel it there. Manila is very, very modern. But you also see that in kind of the women there. You have more women who work, more women who are independent, that Western mindset of, being young and kind of having some fun and focusing on a relationship as they get a little bit older. That's starting to seep into Manila, as far as I can tell. I don't want to go all the way to the Philippines just to basically get the same attitude I get in America. Now, when you're in Cebu, which is the place that I love, that's where the culture is different. That's where women are looking to get married. They're looking to start relationships fairly early in life. They are not thinking about, at 23, kind of sleeping around and trying to have a lot of fun. They're actually looking for relationships. And culturally, they date and marry much older. So you're a guy who's 50, you can meet a woman who's 24. She's ready to get married, start a family. That's, you'll see people on podcasts talk about that in America. I don't really see that in America. Yeah, there may be some guy who's 50 and is dating a 24-year-old, but he's probably Leonardo DiCaprio, something like that. 10 years, sure. 50, you're dating 40, yeah. 50, you're dating 35, and that's about the edge of what's reasonable to expect in the States. You might find someone, you might date younger, you might be 50 and date someone who's 30, maybe. I don't see that. I can count on one hand the number of people I've seen number of guys I've seen who've gotten married to a woman who was 20 years younger than them in the West. And I would say every single time the guy made substantial money and the woman he married was cute and didn't really make much money at all. So, sure, it's possible, but it's not likely. You go to the Philippines, look, if you want to date it, if you want to marry a 25-year-old, you can. You just have to really think about what you want your wife or girlfriend to offer. Like, how do you want her to be built? How do you want her to act? Like, literally, you can build a checklist of what you want, and you can pretty much go to the Philippines, and if you shop around, you will find it. I've seen taller, shorter, thinner, thicker, darker, paler. I've seen it all. And you can find exactly what you want, and they will find you appealing. That's not to say that all the women in the Philippines are going to find all Westerners appealing, but if you build a model of what you want, yeah, you can find a woman over there who finds you attractive. You're Western, you're exotic to them. That works very well. So going over there and finding kind of what you want, yeah, that's possible. I really encourage guys who've never been to give it a shot if they don't feel like they're finding what they want in America. Because seeing what it's like to feel like a celebrity, experiencing that, it's hard to put into words what it's like to stand out, to be one of the tallest guys in the mall, to know that you are much more successful. I mean, you might be more successful than people in the States, but in the States, people don't really care because people nitpick so much. But over there, no. Being tall and rich and exotic, you get to really feel those advantages when you're over there. You will notice how you're treated by people over there, and it's something that you'll miss. When I came back from the Philippines, it was obvious the first day I was back. Walking around in New Jersey, everybody I saw was busy, was in a hurry. People aren't social, they don't interact. I'm just a regular guy again. That whole notion of just kind of that feeling of community was gone. Like, all right, I'm a guy on the hamster wheel, back at it, trying to figure it out. But the impression it left upon me was profound, because now that I'd seen it, I thought, yeah, I've traveled around a good amount in my life, and I never went someplace where I thought, ooh, this is a place I could retire to. Never thought that. I said, I'll retire someplace in America, probably Florida, something like that, until I went to the Philippines. And then I thought, well, shoot, why wouldn't I retire here? I mean, from a lifestyle standpoint, this feels like it has everything I want. The low cost of living, it's got all the amenities I want. Yeah, why not do it? And I say to guys who are trying to consider, options like that, why not consider the Philippines? Maybe you don't like it, but you should see it and understand it before you make a decision about, whether it's right for you. And for a lot of guys who are complaining about their lives and not really being able to build out the life they want, I say, look, a 24-hour plane ride and you could be in Shangri-La. So rather than gripe about what you don't have, why not put a little bit of effort into getting someplace where people are saying they're finding exactly what they want. And I mean exactly what they want. The only guys I've seen who've said that the Philippines isn't for them and have meaningful answers are guys who are looking for something specific. If you're specifically looking for a Brazilian, if you're specifically looking for an African, sure, the Philippines is not the place for you. But most of the guys I meet that's not their focus. They care about a woman's character. They do care about her figure, but if they get a woman who's got a nice figure, got a nice disposition, they're pretty much happy. I'm here to tell you, walk down any street in Cebu and you're going to find a dozen women who fit those criteria. You just have to decide which one you want, and then put some effort in. But I've got videos of guys. There's a guy in Texas. This guy's a lawyer, and it was funny to me that as a young lawyer, he needed to go to the Philippines to find a wife. Now, he'd been shopping around in the States, but basically, he wasn't finding a woman who he felt he could commit to. He wanted someone who was going to be more modest. He wanted someone who was going to be more domestic. And women can, it's perfectly fine for women to say that's not what they're selling. But that's what he wants. That's the kind of woman he was looking for. He wanted a woman who could take care of the home. He makes plenty of money. He went to the Philippines and he found exactly what he wanted. They've got a channel on TikTok called Pinay Social. And part of what he talked about was how when he first met her, one of the first things he noticed that was a green light for him was how she was dressed very modestly. She's very modest in her dress. She's very modest in her speech. He was talking to a woman who basically hadn't been out just having her fun. She was conservative. She wasn't looking to date. She was looking to marry. Wanted to find the right kind of guy for her to build a relationship with. He was all in after a week. And he's in Houston, I believe, and she's basically kind of out a little bit in the provinces of Cebu. He would send her care packages, put the time in, got the paperwork together, brought her to the States, and they got married, and they are building a life. Now, the funny thing is, there are women in the States who probably want the life that he can give her. They want that life. He's the guy, and he wants the woman. He just hasn't been able to find the woman who has kind of the modesty he's looking for, the demeanor he's looking for. He had to fly to the Philippines, and it didn't even take him a week to figure out that he found a woman who, would offer what he wanted, which was, a loyal wife, someone who could be the mother of his children. There are plenty of guys making that kind of money who are in his same dilemma. They want a wife. They can't find the kind of wife they are looking for, and they don't know what to do. And for a lot of those guys, if they just got on a plane and went over to the Philippines, well, problem would be solved in a week. I mean, let me tell you, buyer beware. You go to the Philippines as a guy, what you got to worry about is not coming back 2 weeks later with a kid on the way. That's a real risk. You'll find a woman who might treat you better than anyone has treated you in your life, and you'll think, wait a minute, my expectations were set too low. I didn't expect what I'm getting here, and it never occurred to me to set my sights that high. I need to start aiming higher. This is a woman who will go all in. This is a woman who I do believe would stick it out until death do us part. So this is the kind of woman who I'm going to commit to. This is the kind of woman who I'm going to build a life for. I can afford to put a woman up in a very nice neighborhood where she doesn't have to work. But if all she's going to do is complain about how things could be even easier, why bother? I want someone who will actually appreciate what I'm giving them. And when guys go to the Philippines, they're finding a level of appreciation that they haven't seen before. So I say, you know what? Before you write everyone off, take a trip to the Philippines. See if you aren't finding what you want. And if you are, well, maybe you will start the kind of life that you've been looking for. I'm going to take another bite. Osladero, 100%. Yes, indeed, my friend. Philippines is where it's at. Sheila says, when you return from the Philippines, would you mind going out for a drink? No expectations, just to hear your experience. And if you want to film it, I wouldn't mind. Plus, I'm willing to travel. Okay, so that's interesting. So if we filmed it, I'd be willing to do like a coffee and film it, because that would be, let's face it, that would be great footage. We did that live, however long ago that was, a few months ago. Riker saying, why would I pass off your comment? I haven't gotten down to your comment yet, Riker. Hang on a second. So yeah, if we did like a filming, I could do that. We could talk about that more. Totally up for making new content. Some of us appreciate men's efforts. Okay, look, some women do appreciate men's efforts. Don't get me wrong. But when you got guys saying, look, if I've got to get married, I want a woman who's not overweight, who doesn't have kids, who doesn't bring kind of the attitude and the aggravation. I want someone who I actually enjoy spending my time with, and I'm not finding that. Well, there's a strong argument for them going to the Philippines and seeing what's going on. Sheila says, that's me shooting my shot on live. Okay, so we got to figure out, Sheila. If you want to meet to talk about the Philippines and film it, that's great. If you're shooting your shot, that's a different thing. Like, I'm more focused on finding a woman from the Philippines at this point. I'm not really interested in getting into a relationship with someone from the West. I don't have issues with women from the West and how they're approaching things. I've seen what's available in the Philippines, and I really like what's available over there. So that's where I'm going to go to focus on a relationship. Conversation, interview, sure. A date, that's different. That wouldn't really work. Riker Sangren says, what you eating? I'm eating some veggie pasta. We've got some pasta with onions, bell peppers, sun-dried tomatoes, provolone, and olives. And I gotta tell you, it's pretty good. I did a little bit of seasoning in it, not too much, but I've been eating healthier the last couple of months, and veggie pasta for dinner once or twice a week is part of my healthier effort. So yeah, that's what I'm munching on. Then Riker said, why would you pass off my comment? Talked about that. I hadn't gotten to it yet. Riker Sangren, sounds like discrimination. Maybe it does. I don't think it's. Let's think about it this way. Because I don't know if I would call it, like, discrimination sounds negative, and I would say more of preference, more of habit. If I was recruiting players for my basketball team, and I said, you know what, if you didn't play at a D1 school in college, I'm not gonna look at you. Okay, is that discrimination, or is that me just, being efficient? Sure, I might pass on somebody who's really good and just never played D1. But for the most part, I'm focusing my efforts on players who've proven that they've got, some talent. When I date in the West, it kind of feels like the same old song over and over again. I'll get the women who want to get married because they don't have kids and they want to start a family right now. They don't seem to care who you are. They're not really interested in any sort of vetting. They just want a wedding ring. They're in a hurry to get married. They're probably going to be in a hurry to get divorced. Don't want that. I mean, women who already have kids and they want to get married. I think, well, number one, now I got to take money that would be spent on my kid and I got to divert some of that to your kids. Got to, take care of them too. Number two, I don't want to take care of anybody else's kids. I got my kids. I'll take care of my kid. Or any kids I have after this. Yeah, okay, that would be my responsibility. somebody else's kids or some other man's responsibility. Don't want to deal. I just don't want to deal with that. I used to think about life partners, but women don't really want life partners. They want husbands. So I just accepted. Women want husbands, so I have to say, well, if you want a husband, do you have everything that I want out of a wife? If you don't have everything I want, and I mean 100% of the things that I want, why bother? Why take the risk? I get married to some woman, she decides to divorce me, and she could come after some of my money that my daughter should inherit when I'm dead and gone. My daughter gets it, great. Some woman who I was married to for a couple of years gets it, I'm ticked off. 3 years of marriage, 5 years of marriage, that's not worth half of what I've built in my life. Heck no. So I want a woman who I actually believe is going to be loyal. And I just don't have as much confidence in women in the West as I do in women in the Philippines. Because in the Philippines, divorce has not existed for most of their life. They're bringing it to the Philippines, but that's a culture where women have grown up with no divorce. I feel way more confident in that than I do in what's going on in the West. Riker Sangren. She could be the one for you. Hey, look, I've talked to Sheila before. Sheila's a great woman, so let me not... I don't want to mischaracterize this as me thinking that Sheila's not a good person. It's just me saying, you know what? What I want is in the Philippines. It's not in the West. I want a young, thin, pretty, exotic Filipina who, is probably going to say, oh, wow, this guy wants me to take care of the house? Easy. That's easy peasy. I would do that anyway. And if he's putting me up in a comfortable lifestyle, all the better. I want that level of appreciation. And so that's what I'm going for. So let me see. Osladoro, have you been to the Philippines? I've been twice. So yeah, I was in the Philippines last year. I was in the Philippines just over a year ago, and I'm flying back to the Philippines Saturday. I'm going to be there for 2 weeks, so this will be my second time. I was in Cebu last time, and I'm going to Cebu again this time. Just going to do Cebu a little bit differently. I've been to Indonesia, and I've been to the Philippines. I used to really speak highly of Indonesia. I think Indonesia is great. The Philippines had it beat. Philippines is a little bit more modern. Philippines has more of a population. They are less, Indonesia felt almost completely reliant on tourism, which felt kind of weird to me. I didn't like feeling like the whole town depended on me for their economy. I don't feel that in the Philippines. They've got their own economy. They can get things going on their own. The tourism helps, but it's not essential to their lives, and that helps me to feel a little bit more comfortable. So yeah, you said you've been twice. I'm curious to know, where did you go when you were in the Philippines? Where'd you go? And I'm curious about your experiences. Sheila's got the handshake emoji. And then Riker Sangren, huh? Did you say young? Calm down now. Oh yeah, young. I'm not talking 18 here. That's too young for me. But I have no reservations about admitting. I see women who are like 26-ish, 27, 28. That's like that to me is when they're in their prime. Some guys will say 22. I don't want her to look too young. I don't want someone who looks like a kid. I want her to look like a woman, but I want her to look like a young woman. Kind of those mid to late 20s. Like gravity hasn't really hit them yet, so they're attractive. They still basically defy gravity. And I'm quite happy with a woman who's in sort of that range. As Riker saying 19. Yeah, 19 is too young. You're saying prime is 24? Yeah, I think for a lot of I don't doubt, like, if you're interviewing guys and they're saying prime is 24, I wouldn't doubt that. I'm just talking about for me. For me, women are in their prime when they're like 26, 27. Like they fill out just a little bit more. They're not fat, they're still slim. It's like they've got everything going. And one of the things about the Philippines, which is funny, it's another one of the benefits of finding a woman who's like 26, 27 over there. After about 25, that's when Filipinas feel old. Like women in America might start to feel old once they hit like 30. That's like that psychological milestone. Oh, now you're 30. For Philippines, it's like 25. So you get a woman who's 26, she might feel a little bit old. You're thinking she's young and gorgeous. In her mind, she feels a little bit old. So there's the value add of her really appreciating that somebody's showing interest in her old butt. Like that's what's going on in her mind. So that makes it all the better. And Osladoro is saying Manila, Luzon, Leyte, Tacloban City. First time was visiting a girlfriend I met online back in 2011. I was just there in April for 2 weeks. Being Canadian, hot weather kills me, but love the people. Yes, indeed. Okay, so you were there you just got back. Never been in April. I was okay. That's interesting. You did kind of what I did the first time. You got in, you traveled around. I did that last year. I'm not going to do that this year. I had a lot of fun doing that. But what I realized is, last year when I went to the Philippines, I spent a lot of time in transit. I'd take a 3-hour bus ride to some location, tour it for a little bit, and then it's a 3-hour bus ride back. Or I'd take a boat and then, take some sort of a trike and spend like half the day traveling to a destination to enjoy it, but then half the day traveling back. I don't want to spend as much of my time in transit this time around. So I'm going to be in Cebu. I'll do a little bit. I am going to go whale shark diving again at some point on my trip. And I know that that's 3 hours away. But I'm not going to be just on buses all the time, zipping up and zipping down. No. I want to enjoy more of the people, more of the culture, more of the scene. In Cebu, there's an area called Sugbo Mercado. I'm definitely going to be spending a lot of my nights there. It's this awesome area where you've got a stage. They'll have live music or karaoke. It's just random. It depends on who's there and what they want to do. But you got all these eateries. So there might be 30 shops that you can just walk around and grab something to eat in. And that would be heaven for me. Riker says, what are your thoughts on Kanye's new album, Vultures 2? Haven't listened to it. Man, you're talking to the wrong person. I listen to old rock and roll, all this old stuff. I listen to stuff from like 20 years ago. I still listen to like old Foo Fighters and stuff like that. If it's new, I have to ask my kid who the new artists are. I just don't listen to them that much. But that's me. And Osladero, Cebu was my next stop. How is it there? Okay, given where you've been, Osladero, I think you're gonna love Cebu. Cebu versus Manila. Manila feels more modern than Cebu. And I haven't been to Manila, but the guys I've talked to who have been to Manila, we've compared notes. Manila's kind of modern. Cebu, you'll get more of the province feel. Cebu, you stand out more. There are a lot more tourists in Manila than Cebu. You go out there and you're a Westerner, you stand out like a sore thumb. I'm like 5'11", so I'm a little bit taller than average. When I was in the mall in Cebu, I went to Ayala Mall, which is the one of the famous malls there. I was one of the tallest guys in the mall. So I'm one of the tallest guys in the mall. I'm a black American guy. Yeah, people are noticing me. Everybody's paying attention to me. I was the only black guy in the whole mall, and I enjoyed that. I liked feeling special, feeling like a celebrity. You really get to enjoy that in Cebu. There are going to be lots of women who are giving you, these looks of interest, basically telling you, hey, like what I'm seeing, do you want to know more? Now, I was there with someone, and so that didn't really work out, but because I was like, I'm with somebody, and I'm not a player, but I did think, if I wasn't with somebody already, look at all these options. I had no clue how many people would be interested in me. So, from the standpoint of you will stand out, yes. I also get the sense that Cebu, Manila, I think Manila's prices are probably a little higher because they've got more tourism, so more people are accustomed to those prices. Everything's cheap in Cebu. I was in Cebu, and if I took a Grab from one place to another, I started to get mad if I had to spend $5 on a Grab. I thought, this is robbery. $5? How could they ask for this? Because you quickly get accustomed to zipping around. You're like, $3 for a Grab here, $3 for a Grab there, $4 if I gotta go across town. A bus ticket's like $2. Everything's cheap. Food is cheap. Look, $20 in Cebu, that's gonna carry you a long way, unless you just do touristy stuff all the time. Yeah, you'll really appreciate Cebu. SPL, have I been to Thailand? I haven't. Heard about Thailand. I think I'm a little. My take, and this is just my take. I think you got a lot more guys who are traveling to Thailand to visit than Cebu. A lot of people know about Thailand. And see, I don't want to go someplace where there are a lot of tourists. I want to go someplace where there aren't that many tourists. I want to be special. I want to stand out. I want people staring at me. I want to feel like I'm the only black American man in 1 mile radius of wherever I go. When I was in the Philippines, I was in the mall. I was the only black American in the mall. When I went to dive with whale sharks, I was definitely the only black American. I might have been the only American. There were a couple of Australians and a bunch of Koreans, but I didn't see any other Americans. So I was walking around tall and special, and I loved that. I loved being noticed everywhere I went. I want that again. Riker is saying, hey, I'm 5'3". How's anyone going to want me? Look, Riker, is the average height of a man in the Philippines is about 5'5". It's like 5'4". The average height of a woman in the Philippines is like 4'11". So if you're 5'3", you're taller than most of the women over there, and you're not that far off of the average height of men. I mean, 5'3" in the Philippines is like about 5'8", 5'7" in the States. So yeah, 5'9" is average. Let's say 5'8", you're a little bit shorter than average. That's what 5'3" would be in the Philippines. So you go there, you're not a super short guy. You're a little bit short. But here's the more important thing, and this is a funny thing about the Philippines, especially Cebu. Their values when they're choosing relationships are different. In America, people's primary choice, it seems like women's primary choice is looks. Does this guy have the looks? Character doesn't matter. Dating history doesn't matter. If you got the looks and you got the money, that's it. That's all you really need. So you can be a big old jerk. You can be a huge womanizer, but you're tall and handsome. You make a lot of money. Nobody cares. You're going to have a field day. It's different over there. These are women who are looking to get married. So they're looking differently. They're looking for guys who've got character. Your character matters more than your looks over there. They want a guy who can be a provider, but if you're a provider and you're a good guy, they believe that you're going to be loyal. That works. I've watched interviews with women. It was funny because these were real interviews, just regular old women. And women would say things like, hey, looks fade. I care about a person's personality way more because that's the thing I have to live with. There was a woman who married a Western man, and she basically said she didn't want a handsome guy. She wanted a guy who was a little bit ugly because she wanted him to be more loyal. She didn't want to have to worry about him leaving her because he always had women after her. So it's like to us it's backwards thinking, but to them, they're choosing someone who they believe they can build a life with. And looks, looks are not the first thing that they focus on. Now, I'm not saying looks don't matter. Looks still matter, but it's not like over here. It's not like the first focus is looks. If you got the the character and you got the right mindset, yeah, you'll go over there. You'll be just fine. Riker Sangren, I don't want to be in the Philippines. Hey, I don't blame you. Not everybody does. I like things about the Philippines. I mean, let's face it. I'm an American. I love America. I love my country. I love my life here. But when I think about retiring, like, I'm not going to retire in New Jersey. I don't want to have to deal with the New Jersey tax rate when I retire. That constant hit into my savings year after year for the privilege of living in New Jersey. No, I'll just go down to Florida. If I'm thinking about what I want to get out of life, and if I'm thinking about, frankly, our culture, which tends to ignore citizens once they get older, once you retire, people talk about how they become invisible in America because that's just not the way we're wired. It's not our culture. You go someplace where you're not invisible, where you're like, look, I'm still perceived as having value. I'm still a big shot. I like that. Yeah, that's something that I can't ignore. And if you've got beautiful young women who find you interesting, all the better. But yeah, I could see it. I'm not convinced about it, but I could see it. However, for some guys, I mean, if we're just talking about vacation, like, look, you go over there, you experience it for a couple of weeks. Take a vacation. You ever been in Hawaii? You ever been someplace tropical? Same thing, except you got to fly a little bit longer. I say it's something that's probably going to be a different experience than you've ever had. Some people want it. Some people might not. Personally, I've loved it. I advocate for it. But everybody's got to make that decision for themselves. Riker, I'm about that red, white, and blue. Hey, I am too, buddy. I hear you there. But I still travel. I mean, I've been to Europe. I've been to Indonesia. I've been to the Philippines. I'm not going to ignore other parts of the world that I want to go see because I want to go see them. Before I'm dead and buried, yeah, I've got a lot of things I want to go see. I want to see the pyramids. I want to see the Great Wall. I want to go to the Australian Open. I want to go do a lot of things. I'm going to travel the world before it's all said and done, unless I keel over before I can do it. But that's just me. That's my passion. I want to see a bunch of stuff with my own two eyes, and I'm going to spend my time trying to make that happen. Osladero at Riker, give it a few years and a few relationships. You'll be running to the Philippines. It kind of depends. If what you're looking for is a legitimate relationship with someone who you feel is going to be loyal and who can appreciate you, and if you're feeling like you can't find that in America, or if you're feeling like the only women in America who will offer that are women who already have kids or have these bad attitudes because they've been through so many bad relationships that they'll never fully trust you, or you can't really trust them to be loyal. If you're feeling like you can't find what you want here, well, you might want to take a look at the Philippines, because I don't know guys who come back from the Philippines saying they couldn't find what they wanted if they were looking for a relationship. Now, if you're just going over there, I've seen guys go over there and they're just looking for fun and they don't go to the right parts of the Philippines. Like, sure, but where do you want to invest your time? SPL, welcome SPL. What part of Jersey are you in? I'm in Hoboken, so North Jersey. And Riker says there's loyalty in the U.S. So actually, before I do that, so if you are new to the channel and you like the content, click like, click subscribe, so when I do more shows, you'll be notified and you can participate. I don't remember to say that that often, but yeah, I wanted to pull that up. So Riker Sangren, there's loyalty in the U.S. You know what? There is loyalty in the U.S., but there's not as much loyalty in the U.S. as there is in the Philippines. And here's why I say that. In the U.S., the divorce rate's about 50%. And women overwhelmingly file for divorce. 70, 80, 90% of the time, depends on how you cut the data. It's because the women file for divorce. So there is loyalty, but you're going into marriage knowing you got a 50-50 shot. If you go to the Philippines, in the Philippines, the divorce rate, 0. There is no divorce over there. At least there hasn't been. They're introducing a type of divorce, but even that is extreme. But yeah, you're going to a culture where the divorce rate's 0. And here's the funny thing. If you look at guys who go to the Philippines, meet a woman and bring her back to the States and get married to her. So, maybe she's green carding, maybe she's, just trying to use him for his money. If you look at that divorce rate's only 20%. So, regular divorce rate in America, 50%. Worst case scenario divorce rate in the Philippines, 20%. There's loyalty in the U.S. I don't question that. I just say if I'm going to gamble, and that's what marriage kind of feels like right now, a gamble. Well, do I want to gamble on a 50% divorce rate or a 20% divorce rate? Or do I want to go to the Philippines where there's a 0% divorce rate? I like odds overwhelmingly in my favor if I'm going to gamble on something. For me personally, I just don't see the value in the States. Now, if I was younger, if I was early in my career, I hadn't earned anything, then it'd be different because the woman would be gambling on me to be successful. But that's not where I am in life now. So now it's like, you know what? I want low risk. I offer high rewards, but I want low risk, and that's just kind of how I'm going to focus. Riker Sangren, I already subscribed. Thank you, Riker, for your subscription. I appreciate that. Riker, it's not a 50-50 shot if you look for the right person who believes the same things and has the same morals as you. So I don't know if you've ever been married, Riker. That'd be a question for you, but I'll say this. Most of the people I know don't go into marriage, well, let me say most of the guys I know don't go into marriage planning to get divorced. Yet, there's a 50% divorce rate. Most of the guys I know who are divorced got married in good faith. They wanted to build a life with the woman they were with, and it didn't work out. And I'm trying to think about, if I think about the guys who I know who are divorced, not a single one of them filed. Not a single one. Now, there are guys who do file for divorce, but yes, in my circle, I don't know a single guy who has filed for divorce. I know guys who fought through divorce for custody, things like that. Hey, I'm a story. I have 50-50 custody of my kid, and I had to fight for that in court. But yeah, people walk into it assuming it's going to work, but only 50% of the time does it actually seem to. Riker, through Christ, you can come together. Okay, so that's getting into a couple of things. I think that religious people, a lot of people get married in church. A lot of people get married making vows to God about what they're going to do or not do, and the divorce rate is still 50%. I would assume that more people are getting married in a church with vows than just at the justice of the peace at the courthouse. Divorce rate is still 50%. So at some point, reality kicks in, and you just say, hey, the likelihood that this thing works is like 50-50. And I think that if it does work, it can be great. But if it doesn't work, and I'm the one who's got most of the money going in, I could get wrecked. So I'm just not ready to sign up for that. I just don't see the point. SPL, doesn't matter what country you're in, all women want benefits. Third world countries, your dollar goes a long way. Yeah, see, I agree with that, SPL. I think women are women wherever you go. Women want benefits wherever you go. It's just kind of this. Let's say that women want a luxury lifestyle. That's what they're after. Let's kind of make that a goal for the sake of argument. A luxury lifestyle, providing that for a woman is a lot more expensive for a woman in the States, in New Jersey, than it is for a woman in Cebu in the Philippines. A luxury lifestyle in the Philippines, if you're making enough money to get to the Philippines, to live in the Philippines, you're making enough money to live luxuriously by Philippine standards over there. And if you've got $1,000 a month, which I don't know how you can live there and not be making at least that, given what you got to do to travel there and whatnot. Yeah, you're living upper middle class, almost upper class lifestyle over there on that much money. So to the woman who's looking for a provider, yeah, you are an excellent option. You are an upper middle class option. And she's got to provide to you what she would be providing to her man anyway, which is kind of the support network. You know, she'll do the domestic stuff. He goes out and earns the money. She's going to do that whether you make $12,000 a year or $7,000 a year. The fact that you make more just means it's better for her. So guys' dollars really work to their benefit there. They just have to figure that out. What do we have there? Sheila. There's a law firm that's introducing alt marriages that are sort of a contract where you can agree to marry for a period with the option to renew your marriage license should you want to go on. Would you consider a 5-year marriage contract where you wouldn't feel burned if you don't renew it? I think that's better. Depends on how the exit is structured. I mean, if you're structuring it, I'm walking. These are my assets walking in. These are your assets walking in, and you can't touch mine. I can't touch yours. That's a better start. But here's the thing. This is what it's always going to come back to. Why bother getting married in the first place? Like, this whole contract, all these issues. If you just don't get married, problem solved. You know, what you're talking about is fundamentally a problem that's associated with getting married in the first place. We're trying to take some of the risk out. We're trying to take the risk way down, a little bit of the way down. Basically, we're trying to manage the risk that you are assuming by getting married in the first place. If you just don't get married, you don't have to worry about that as much. Now, there are common law things. There are a lot of things that you still have to consider. But the moral of the story is that the best way to avoid most of these issues is to just not get married. So, unless someone can show me what the compelling reason is to get married, for me personally, I say why bother? Especially if we're talking about a woman who already has her kids, doesn't plan on having any more kids. It's like, nothing wrong with that, but now I'm saying, why would why get married? Why bother? Like, you're not going to have any of my kids, so I'm not going to be paying for kids that aren't mine. And if a woman's, in a rush to, she wants kids in a hurry, she wants kids in the next 12 months because her clock is ticking. Well, again, I don't want to sign up for a marriage to her. She's not vetting, and I don't know what's going to happen once she gets what she wants. She might suddenly decide, hey, don't want to be married to this guy, got what I want, time for me to go back to living my life, being high-powered, being independent. Don't want to have anybody who I have to answer to. There's a lot to that. Let me take a bite real quick, and then I'll come back to comments. And sadly, that was the last of my veggie pasta. Very good. Rating that a 9 out of 10. Should have added more cheese. Divorce rate is 60%. And most that don't get divorced only stay together for financial reasons or the kids. So 60% is a new stat. I mean, I heard like a little over 50. I wouldn't doubt it. When I've heard 60%, that number I've seen when people were talking about New York and LA. State to state divorce rates vary. I think New York and LA have the hot, New York and California, are the highest divorce rates. funny thing about marriage, when you look at marriage and divorce, there were these two divorce lawyers. This is one of the most interesting things I found on divorce. So these two divorce lawyers sat back. They went through they've been, practicing law for years, and they looked at all of their cases. They went through all of their data because they were just trying to say, look, what are the factors that seem to lead to divorce, that seem to not to, why do some marriages work, some marriages don't work, they went through all of that. And they posted this whole thing on their website. It was really interesting. Here's what they found. When you look at why people get divorced, first thing to know, 95% of the people who got divorced said that they could have fixed the problems in their marriage. So it wasn't a matter of something being broken. It was just they didn't feel like bothering with fixing it. They'd rather go out and try to find something better than stay and work on the thing that they have. 95% of people said that they could fix their marriage. They just didn't want to. And when you looked at why they said they got married, the number one reason was financial security. It wasn't love. It wasn't family. It wasn't any of that. They wanted financial security. It's also funny that when you look at why they got divorced, and I've seen this data is starting to pop up on YouTube more and more. Here's what happens in a marriage. Somebody sees this partner and they see the benefits that this partner can offer them. So they say, yeah, I'm getting a lot of what I want, so this is a good relationship to get into. And they get married. But what they don't do is they don't stop to think about what their partner wants in return. They'll get married and they'll go through that honeymoon phase, but then they get to the point in the relationship where the rose-colored glasses come off, and now you've just got that relationship to work on, and now you two need to actually have some points of commonality, something that binds you together, and they find out that their partner has some expectations of them. It's not just them getting benefits. They have to do some work, and they don't want to. Their partner wants things from them that they realize they don't want to give. So they get into a marriage, get the benefits, and then when they realize that the marriage is actually going to take some work, they decide that they would rather get divorced than do the work. 95% of the people who got divorced said that they could have fixed their marriages. They just didn't want to. So when I saw that, I thought, well, shoot, it's pretty clear. Like, why bother? For some people, hey, look, I don't tell other people not to get married. You want to get married, live your life. But for me, at this point in my life, like, well, why? What would I gain out of being married? Like, the relationship? I don't need to get married to have the relationship. The relationships I've been in with women didn't end because I didn't want to get married. It ended because we got to a point where they wanted one thing and I wanted another, and we realized, look, this is a sticking point, and we're just not compatible because I'm not going to give on this, and neither are you. So we got to go our separate ways. That's just how that is. Sheila says, for companionship. That's my answer to your question, why get married. Well, I guess here's my question back, Sheila. Why get married to get the companionship? I mean, the way things go now, I don't need. I can have a woman. We can date. She can move in. We can be just fine, and we can never get married. Or better yet, she keeps her house. I keep my house. We spend our free time together, and we live our lives, and we never formally get married. Keeps the government out. Oh. Looks like I temporarily disconnected. Hopefully I didn't lose anybody. But yeah, with that, there's a lot of risk associated with getting married that doesn't really exist when you're dating. So it begs the question, why formalize the relationship? What's the benefit of formalizing it? I don't see it. I just don't see a benefit to making it formal. I see a lot of risks associated with making it formal, but you don't have to formalize it. I know some women who will say that they want to get married, but when push comes to shove, because I'll say, if you got a good man and he's going to be loyal to you, but he doesn't want a ring, are you going to throw that away hoping that you can find another good man who will actually put a ring on your finger? You might say, yeah. You might say, yep. It's a ring or bust. And, that's fine. But let's face it. Well, let me not say that. Let me say a lot of women get divorced assuming that they're going to find a guy who's even better than the guy they just had. And that doesn't really happen. Like you get a new guy, but he's not as good as the guy you had, and you kind of accept that. Sometimes you might, but most of the time, that first spouse you had was the best option you were going to have. You either don't get married, or you marry somebody and you end up divorcing them because they're even worse. Second divorces, higher divorce rate. Third divorces, higher divorce rate. The more times you've been married, the worse the choices seem to be when you go back out there and you try to get married again. Sheila Caesar, a wife would be your next of kin on your documents. Yep. So significant other. Let's talk about. Why do I need a wife? I don't have to get married if I wanted my significant other covered on my health insurance. I don't need to get married. You've got same-sex couples have introduced that legislation. They basically paved the way for everybody else. Like, this is someone who is important to me. I am not married to them. They are my significant other. I want them covered in my insurance. I'm heterosexual. I just date women, but I can still benefit from that. Like, you know what? This is my significant other. I want her on my insurance. Great. Don't need to get married. Put her on the insurance. As far as financial documents, I don't want her on my financial documents. I don't want her to have rights to any of my money. That's part of the point for me, is I want that. Emergency contact, doesn't need to be my wife for that. Who's your emergency contact? Girlfriend. Here's the contact info. Done. There's no benefit to her being my wife. Literally. I'll entertain any question you've got about the benefits. I don't see them. I don't see what the point is. Why get married? You got a girlfriend, things are going well. Why get married? The only reason to get married is, the only reason I could see a guy arguing for getting married is because she'll leave if you don't. But if she'll leave if you don't, well, she probably would leave if you did. So it goes back to, why get married? Why bother? If you're established, you got the money, you don't want to risk it, why get married? All you're doing is you're putting it all at risk. Now, if you can marry someone and you got a guarantee that they can't divorce you, that's different. Philippines isn't 100% guaranteed, but it's about the closest thing you can get. You want a 28-year-old whose aspirations in life are to be a wife and mom to a good man? Okay, go to the Philippines. Get your relationship. If you need to get married to her, okay, but again, why? Why? Just live your life, enjoy your life. Keep it simple. That's kind of my thought. So, kind of comes down to, we went down the marriage rabbit hole. So I'm not going to the Philippines looking for a spouse. Definitely not going looking for a wife. But if I went there and I met a woman and we really hit it off, and she wanted to move to America, yeah, I would take the time to really figure out how do we make that happen. The last time I was there, I made a mistake. because I assumed all the women there would want to come to America. I mean, I just figured, doesn't everybody have the American dream? I'm naive about that. And what I found was, hey, here's a woman who I met a great woman, but her life's in the Philippines. Her family's in the Philippines. Her, aside from a short work stint, her whole life experience is the Philippines. She didn't want to leave the Philippines. She wanted a man who was going to move to the Philippines to build her a life in her country. And that's not what I was offering. So it didn't make sense. I know better now. One of the, if I meet a nice woman over there this time, one of the questions that's going to come up very early is, what are your thoughts on moving to America? Wouldn't expect her to want to up and move immediately. And she told me, never going to happen? Okay. This relationship isn't really going anywhere. However, she said, oh, she'd love to move to America. All right. This is a relationship that has potential. Look, I get it. There are a lot of good women in America who sometimes are in tough spots. Because it can be a good woman who might be overweight, might have kids. Good woman, but at a bit of a disadvantage because there are slim women with no kids who are just they're just easier options. Some guys don't want to go to the Philippines. Some guys will work on that. But for me, at this point in my life, I'm saying, look, I want the best option that's available. The best option that's available to me, honestly, just feels like it's in the Philippines. So if I'm there and I meet a great woman while I'm there, all the better. And if not, well, I can still have an amazing vacation and not spend so much time in transit going from tourist location to tourist location, because I want to spend more time boots on the ground just enjoying what's there. We've been going for almost 2 hours, which is longer than I thought I was going to go on this topic. So we will wrap it up. Let me just see if there are any other questions for now. Happy to tackle those. Otherwise, I think I'm going to do a few more shows on travel. And while I'm in the Philippines, I'll definitely be doing some shows while I'm there, just kind of showing what I'm seeing, that whole thing. So it should be fun. I'm looking forward to it. So yeah, it's Gene, Last Good Man in Jersey. Hope you enjoyed the show. Hope you liked. Hope you subscribed if you found it interesting and you want to participate in more shows when they come up. I'll be in the Philippines next week, so those shows will have a little bit of a different feel. Hopefully one that you appreciate. And with that, we'll call it a show.